Hello, welcome to the second session of the Willow and Tissue course where we'll be looking at making lanterns. Here's an example of a plain tissue lantern and next to it a photograph of it lit up. This lantern has had colour applied to it with tissue and inks, and again next to it you see what it looks like when lights are put inside it. And here we have two star lanterns. The first step in making a lantern is to create a base. This base can be whatever shape you fancy within reason. So this one has a triangular base, and this one has a square base. If you wanted to, it could be hexagonal or as many-sided as you like, but I'm going to start with a square base. So first of all, I need to tape the four pieces together. They've all been cut to the same length, and it's exactly the same as before. Place that, wrap the tape around one piece, place the next in position, wrap the tape around that one, and I'm going to put a little bit of extra tape over there just to secure it nicely. There, that's nice and firm. Do the same with the other four corners. So here's my base. With a triangle, it will hold itself very nicely in shape, that base, but anything with four or more sides will have a tendency to distort if you don't put an extra support in. So I'm going to put one extra piece in just across there. That's a little bit long, just trim it and tape that in the same way as I've taped everything else in. Wrap it around one end and then wrap it around the other parts. There we are. Make sure it's firmly stuck in and tape it on that side too. And that gives me a nice firm base that won't distort. Some people put pieces across both directions. You can if you want to. I'm leaving just one in there, so I've got plenty of room to put my hand in later when I'm putting the lights in. So now I need four uprights. Make sure they're all the same length, so cut them with my secateurs. Again, taping these on the same method. Wrap it around, put it in place, and wrap it around the other one. It's wrapped around. To keep this nice and steady, I'm going to put two pieces of tape on. So the second piece coming down in this direction, in the opposite direction. Nice and firm. Just one. That will be my second one. Wrapping the tape around. and these two need to be just tacked at the top. Just a little bit of tape to hold them steady whilst I put the other two on. So just a little bit of tape to hold them together. My four sides are fixed on, and now I need to join them together. But first I'm just going to add some wire in there to hang it from. So I'll twist that around one of those pieces. Okay, and now tape the sides together, starting in pairs. So I'm going to wrap the tape around the end of one and onto the next one. Make sure I wrap it around both of them to hold it nice and firmly. So I've got my two halves, and now I just need to tape those together. Wrap the tape all the way around to hold them firmly together. There we have our basic shape. Now if we look again at a plain lantern made earlier, you can see that on each side there are extra pieces of willow put in. These aren't for support, these are for decoration and create interesting sort of patterns for the sides of your lantern. These have been made, I'll move that out of the way, from the thin whippy ends of the willow. And of course you can put just straight pieces in, but your willow, you should find that it will bend fairly easily into shape. So if you want to get a really good curve, just sort of bend and fold it around something circular like masking tape, and you'll see that it flexes really nicely and bends. If you have a problem with your willow that it keeps breaking, it's too dry, in which case just soak it for a couple of hours and you'll find that it will become nice and flexible again. If you do soak it, you will need to dry it off with a paper towel. So I can start to build pieces of willow into the sides to make a decorative pattern. But first of all, I need to have a little think about what sort of pattern I might use. So I spent a couple of minutes just trying out a few ideas on paper. My first idea, lots of circles, and my second one, a combination of circles and lines. Both feel to me just a little bit too busy. This one's a bit more elegant, but perhaps just a bit too simple, but the idea of curves and a circle. And I quite like the idea of zigzag, so I've combined these two together to come with this idea, a curved base, a zigzag leading up to a circle. And that's the design I'm going to go with. Now you could decide to do the same design on all the sides of your lantern, or you might do different designs on different sides. You could do, if you have a four-sided, you might repeat the same design on two sides and have an alternative design on the other two. It really is up to you. So starting with my curve at the bottom, I've cut a piece a bit longer. Because it's under a little bit of tension, it's curved, I want a bit of extra willow to actually fix onto there, and I'm going to fix it on in exactly the same way as before. Some tape first of all around this piece, wrapped around, And then put that on there, wrap it around the whole side, nice and tight, so it's firmly fixed. And the same on the other side. Always remember to wrap the tape around the willow and you'll get a much stronger join, less likely for it to come loose. So there's my first curve. What you'll notice as I build this is the design might change a little bit just as I'm working with it. I can be as flexible like that as I want. I'm going to make the circle for the top and then put in the zigzags. So a little bit of willow at the end there, broken, so I'll cut it off, move that so you can see, and I want to try and create a nice good curve. Keep bending it and bending it. Don't be tempted to rush this. And I think that's about as small a circle as I can manage. So I should have got the tape ready first. You might need a second pair of hands just to help you at this point if you're making a circle. Get some tape. Because I'm struggling a little bit to hold it still, what I'm going to do is put a little bit of tape on first. A little bit, and then I might, there we are, snip that off, and then I'm going to put a little bit more tape on to make it a bit stronger. A bit better joined, that's it. There we have my ring. So to fix that in the top there, you can see that my design is changing. Where I've already got the masking tape, I'll put that at the side. So take that and tape it nice and firmly in place. That one. There. So now I've just got room for 2 zigzags, I think. One there and one there. So measure it. Put it to size. Just want to touch on that. Wrap the tape around the end. And join it on. That might need a little bit more tape in a minute. Wrap tape around the end. Join that on. And then my final piece. Fix it in exactly the same. So I've got that side made. I'm going to carry on making the rest of the lantern. Remember, take your time, think about the design, and be very careful to firmly tape everything into place. Now I've finished my framework, it's time to apply tissue. Again, wet strength tissue, you can use ordinary tissue if you prefer, but only put glue on the frame, not onto the tissue, otherwise it will tear. But wet strength tissue is a really good base, so it is worth using it. I've cut the pieces and for the 4 sides, and I'm going to start gluing them on. First of all, just check I've got the right side, that it fits properly. It'd be very easy to put the wrong one on. They aren't all exactly the same size. And lots of glue on the frame. Lots of neat glue all over on all of the pieces, the cross pieces and the side pieces, all over the masking tape too. Really be generous with the glue, you want it to stick well. Now on my piece of plastic I'm going to put glue on, just a little bit of water with it. A little bit of glue, a little bit of water. A bit more glue on the bottom. Make sure that you've got the whole thing covered. Okay, so carefully lift it up and place it on, trying to make sure it gets right to the edges. Yeah, pull that over just a bit more, up a little bit, and once it's come across just a bit more than that, I think. That's it. Once it's on, use your brush, working along every single piece. Fold tissue over and make sure that it is in close contact with all of the frame so that the frame will stand out really nicely. There, that's that side. I'll move on to do the other sides now. So here's my lantern with its tissue skin on it. You can see that design that I originally drew. On the sides I kept it simpler without the circle, just the zigzag and the arc. On that side the circle again, and so on. Now you might be happy with your lantern just in a plain colour, or you might decide that you want to decorate it. I'm going to look at 2 very straightforward ways of decorating this lantern. One is applying tissue, and that's what I'm going to start with. Make sure that you can see that nice and clearly. So I'm going to add yellow into that circle. My first step is to put lots of glue there. Now I could very carefully try and cut that circle in yellow tissue, but I know that's going to be really quite difficult. So what I'm going to do instead is place smaller torn pieces of tissue in collaging that area. Need to just put more glue on the top, and that's a lot easier to do, to infill in this sort of way than it is to try and cut the shape in the tissue. So little bits at a time, a little bit to fill in that edge. And if the edges are slightly ragged, you can bring them in with your brush. Get that right up to the edge. Oops. There. Another way of adding colour is to use some kind of watercolour paints, inks, and to paint it in, taking your time. And of course can blend different colours together. So I'm going to take a little bit of orange, put that in there, so that I get a blend of orange and yellow. That's nice. There. Here's my finished lantern, and I'm going to attempt to show you it lit up. So I have some old Christmas lights which I'm going to put inside. Just not nice and high, and switch that on. And now I'm just going to turn the lights out, and hopefully, just move that forward a little bit, there, that's better. Hopefully you'll be able to see it all lit up. To make the star lantern, I need to first of all make 2 stars and then join them together so that there's a gap in between them. I'm going to be making a 5-pointed star. Before I start making it, I'm going to draw out the shape on a piece of paper so I've got a guide, and it's useful to just notice how I draw the 5-pointed star. So I'm using a piece of willow about this long. I'm going to start at the top and go down, across, horizontal, down again to a point about the same point there, and then up. And that gives me my basic 5-pointed star. Don't worry if it's a little bit wonky, that's just fine. And what I need to do is follow that pattern. So I have some pieces of willow all cut to the same length, cut with a pair of secateurs. If you don't have secateurs, you can use the sharp part of a pair of pliers, or with thin willow you can just about get away with a pair of scissors. And I'm going to be joining these together with masking tape because I'm going to be joining them at the ends. So to join my first 2 pieces together, piece of masking tape, start by wrapping around one at a slight angle. So as I wrap it around, it progresses towards the end. I lay this one approximately in the right place on. I take the tape and I fold it through and under the gap, fold it around and then across. So I'm trying to get both pieces nice and firmly stuck together. Okay, next piece. So there is my star. You'll notice though that it's a bit uneven. I can adjust that now though. Try to get it as even as I possibly can. Pull that one up a little bit. So I'm going to start to tape these joints together. Put the tape behind, pull it up and wrap it around both pieces. Just adjusting the shape a little bit as I do this. Now that I've got my two stars, I need to put some spaces, I started here, in between them to separate them, to create a space in between. So these are my spaces, just small pieces of willow, wrapping masking tape all the way around the bottom of it and then taping that into the gap just here, wrapping that piece of masking tape around. And I'm going to need at least a couple of bits of masking tape to hold that in place firmly. So you see the spaces. Now that I've got my spaces fixed on there, I need to put this one on top and tape that in place and then tape the corners to meet each other. So there is my 3D frame. I put extra masking tape on just to hold it securely, and now it's time to add the tissue. So now that I've built the frame, I'm ready to cover it in tissue. I've covered one face already, and now onto the other one. Now it's very tempting to cut out the whole star shape in one go, but that's going to be really quite difficult in tissue to handle with. So I'm going to cut out this large shape here, which has got 3 points on it first. So place it onto my tissue. Try not to be too wasteful, so place it on the edge, and let me just draw around that shape. Now I'm drawing using a felt tip so that you can see it nice and clearly. But a pencil will be just fine. So there's my shape that I'm going to cut out. I've cut out the tissue shape, just going to double check it's going to fit. Yes, that's great. And now I'm going to put neat PVA onto the frame, being nice and generous, particularly on the masking tape. It's on nice and thickly. There, plenty of glue. Now if you're using ordinary tissue, just apply it now, dry. But I want to get a nice tight finish. So I'm going to be putting PVA glue through the wet strength tissue. I've got a piece of plastic on the table so that it doesn't stick, and I'm dipping my brush in some glue and some water and then brushing it all the way through. What this will do is get the wet work tissue to stretch, and then it will shrink as it dries, making a nice taut tight finish. A little bit of water, a little bit of glue mixed together there. If I was doing the whole star, I'd have all these bits to try and hold on to, which would be too much, but that is just about okay to pick up. Peeling it off the plastic. Move this into the center so you can see. I'm going to lay that down on top. Needs to be just to come across this way a bit. And up a bit more. That's it. So pulling it nice and tight on the, as I can on the frame, and then going back over with the brush and more glue, just trying to make sure it's really firmly stuck down, and brushing away from the center, so it should help stretch the tissue a little bit more too. And where I can, I'll wrap it around the edges there. That's nicely stuck on there. I now just need to cut 2 triangles to go on those bits. I'll put those on and then show you putting on the sides. So now I just need to fill in these side bits. I'm going to fill in almost all of them, leaving the biggest one, I think is that one, open so that I can insert a light through it. So cutting strips of paper, tissue paper, plenty of glue on that bit there, glue through my piece of tissue, and then apply it to the side. Now, if you can see this, what I'm doing when I apply it is leaving it sticking out. I'm not folding it over. That will create a crease line on my tissue on the front. I'm just smoothing it on, and when it's dry I will trim off the excess bits. So I'll take my time. Maybe I can do 2 bits at once, but then I have to dry it before I move on to the next one. Okay, so I will carry on with that. So that's the star finished. One end left open so that I can poke some lights inside it. And now it's ready to decorate in any way that I fancy. So I could put coloured tissue over the top of it, or I could apply watercolour paints, or any of those sort of techniques that we used in the first session. Here's one which has had coloured tissue applied to it. Let's move that one out of the way so you can see it properly. So different coloured tissues in order to make a more interesting looking lantern. Here are some examples from the internet which might inspire you to continue developing building lanterns and try something a little bit more complicated. That's all for this session. Next session we'll be looking at more advanced techniques exploring curves, flower forms and so on. Have fun, and if you do Facebook, please do share your achievements on our Facebook page. Details coming up in a moment. Bye bye.